Hi, my name is Adrian, and welcome back to the fifth devlog of my unnamed indie game that combines platforming in a top-down environment with roguelite and bullet hell elements. In this devlog, I'll mainly be focusing on improving my game based off of feedback I got from some friends, such as improving gameplay and making general quality of life changes. So with that out of the way, let's get started. The first thing I worked on this time, before even sending a demo to my friend, was changing up some of the existing sprites in the game. Mostly because with a few of them, I wasn't really satisfied. This includes changing how a sprite looked entirely, to just making certain sprites more detailed. Some of these sprite changes included the golem, the explosion, the bat, the hearts, and the magic bullets. But the biggest sprite change award goes to the player, because they went from this to this. And here's why. I'm a sucker for characters that are essentially a blob with a big head, so I wanted to make one. It was tough remaking all the different sprites for the idol, the wasp, the jump, and the fall, but I think it was worth it. Not only did certain enemies receive a visual upgrade, but one of them was changed up entirely. The enemy that got this change was the basic bat. I wanted to change it up for a while now because it was such a simple enemy that it didn't provide a single challenge. All it did was chase you very slowly, and that's boring. That, and I want to change up how it looks, considering I already have a bat enemy and I don't want there to be two bat enemies. I want to make all my enemies look unique. So introducing, this is a slime enemy, and what it can do is that upon being defeated, it will spawn two smaller slimes, and when they are defeated, they will spawn four very small slimes. It might have the movement pattern of the original bat, but I think its ability to split up makes it a far more interesting enemy to face. You might have noticed something below your health bar, and essentially what those are is your mana points. And before I implemented this, your different magic spells could be used non-stop, and there was never a reason to use your main weapon instead of just spamming right click. So now whenever you use a spell, it'll cost you a set amount of mana, and you won't be able to use it if you don't have enough mana. And so far, every spell uses up one mana point, but down the line I'll make more of the broken spells cost more. There are two ways so far to get back your mana. The first way is that it'll regen naturally, and the second way is that you get it back by defeating enemies. Right now, I'm not too sure that'll keep the first method, since it encourages players to just run around and avoid enemies until they get back their mana, instead of encouraging them to use their main weapon. But for right now, it's safe. After I made these changes, I sent a demo to my friends for some feedback, and they listed a few issues, some more harsher than others. One of their main issues was that the rooms of the levels were too big, and that they needed to be a bit smaller, and another issue they had was the overall way you go about traversing the level. See, with the way things are set right now is that basically, you can traverse the level without needing to defeat any enemies in a room, and that there would be 4 levels before fighting a boss. But a problem they pointed out is that there's never really a reason for the player to actually fight enemies and defeat all the enemies. Sure, there's a reward for completing a room, but by the time you complete it, you've already lost a lot of health, and the reward really wasn't worth all of that. So most players would probably skip trying to fight in general. So I changed how you go about the level by making it so that there's only one floor now, but you have to defeat every enemy in a room to progress. And after making that change, my friends enjoyed the game a lot more, and their only issue as of right now is that there's not a lot of weapon variety and spells, which is something I plan to add later anyways. One final suggestion a friend made was that I should make rooms more interesting by making them more varied. This is because as it stands right now, all the rooms are essentially the same, with the floor and, an elevation. So they suggested that I add stuff like a pit or spikes to my game. And I think I talked about adding those in my first devlog, so I might as well start adding those now. So for the pit, what I did is that instead of spawning a block on top of the floor, the game will sometimes have a chance to spawn a pit object instead. And if a floor is touching a pit object, it'll turn invisible, so that way it looks like there's actually a hole in the ground. Next, I made it so that if a player is touching a pit, a small timer will begin, and if the player doesn't get back to solid ground first, they fall. And then the player will respawn a distance away from the pit, and they would have lost a heart. The hardest part about doing this is that it was hard to check for collision and making sure that you don't fall when you are clearly touching a floor. But with a lot of trial and error, I finally got it working properly. Next, I wanted to add spikes into my game, and that was pretty simple. So first, I made a sprite for the spike, and then made it so that the floors have a chance of spawning one in. And that was pretty much it. And now both hits and spikes are in my game. And groups should be a lot more varied and enjoyable to play through now. And that's all I have for this week. I know it took a while for this to get out, but the GMTK Game Jam was happening, and after that, I didn't feel like coding for a while. I know I said I'd make a video on the jam, but I forgot to record most of the development and I couldn't really make a video out of it. But I'll leave my jam submission in the description so you guys can go check it out. Next week I'll be adding even more weapons and spells to my game, and who knows what I'll do after that. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.